there. Welcome to House and Creatives. We are going to talk a little bit about Neptune today. Um, Also, just want to drop in that we're having a crazy seven planet alignment. 21st or 22nd. I think the dates can vary about where you are. In our area, I think more like the 22nd. But it's Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Uranus, Saturn, Neptune. Did I get them all? I might have missed one, but anyway, this is rare. Okay. So if you're around, if the skies are clear, man, step out and do some gazing into the starlight because that is quite cool, really. And I think it speaks to the times. Anywho, to Neptune.
Neptune.
So Neptune, really the planet itself has a hum that encourages us to dive into spirituality, into what we can't see, into mysticism or occult things. Neptune could also be I have heard the description of putting on rose-colored glasses and wanting to see something better than it is, like a disillusionment, and where we're not seeing clearly. So there can be different sides to this. My thoughts about it is perception, and how we choose to view things in our life to either disassociate from them or to really find the heart of them. And so that is my feels for Neptune. There could be a lot more in that. Jackie, do you have anything to pipe in about Neptune? Any of your feels about Neptune?
Well, I was just smiling because Ashley's all about the feels.
Okay.
I got distracted.
You want a hug? Don't touch me.
No, Neptune makes me think of the trident.
Mhm.
The trident makes me think of past, present, and future. When you
that.
sent this over a little bit, I think we'll get into it. It makes me think about what life was going on, right? Like we'll talk about 2011. The rose-colored glasses, mine is like a little bit of a different view.
Mhm.
Is like when you put them on, you can't go back.
Ooh.
So I already kind of feel like
Decision.
like you're making the decision to never take them off. Like we already are disillusioned
Mm.
into the things we believe, the things we do, the things we don't think that we have an option not to do, maybe so to speak. And then when you start doing the work and you put on the glasses,
Mhm.
there's no going back. Kind of like how I got into body talk. Like I tried it with a practitioner and I was like, oh my God, how did she know? Like, you know, and then as the
How
subtle,
is this possible?
yeah, and the subtle changes that came along with like feeling lighter. And then I dove headfirst and did a ton of it. And then I eventually was like, oh, I've done so much that at that point I went and got my practitioner's degree license. I certification. Thank you.
Yeah.
In it. And yeah, those are my views on that
I
little
love that.
tidbit there.
I love that. That's the breakdown. She mentioned 2011. That's right. So Neptune has been in Pisces. Again, if we talk about rulership, which feels also just kind of like patriarchal to me, Neptune rules Pisces. And I feel like they just have a similar hum. They both represent a this kind of really deep knowing and understanding of creation and the depths of love and God, but also within that, in this world that in the 3D that we've lived, a deep need to disassociate because it doesn't feel like love. That's my feelings, is like very sensitive to these things. Also, just a lot of creative energy too, a lot of yin there. And like I said, we could talk about the attributes to this a whole episode, but we'll get on with it here. But it's been in Pisces since 2011. And so maybe take a moment to ponder where you were at, what was happening in 2011, and how is that projected or changed or continued up until this point, or how has it evolved? I think for me, I had my first child. I had my daughter in 2011. And I think that if you've had a child, you know how life-changing that is in general. And for me, and how I was living and how I was choosing to see life was an absolute upheaval for me. And also the reminder of what I was capable of. And that connection, that threshold that you have when you have a child. I've never experienced anything like it in my entire life. And I think there's a natural awakening that kind of spurts up from those experiences. And she has probably been a very valuable teacher to me in the last 13 years, 14 years.
Yeah.
What about you? What's happening for you in 2011?
I was on my way to North Dakota, and that's where I went to live for quite a few years. And kind of what we talked about at the beginning of the year, I just had slowly, I think, lost myself.
Mm,
That's really what comes to like
interesting.
completely disengaged, wasn't, I feel up until I had moved up there and was probably completely blinded by what I thought love was.
Mm,
And so desperate to get out of where I was because I didn't like it, got into a trap of what I thought it was, booze.
illusion.
Yeah, an illusion. And have slowly the last 4 years worked my way out of it to a point right now where I not fully clear, but clearer, but definitely 2011 to even this last summer it was not fun, but yeah, just working out of the mud, working out of a fog.
Mhm.
Truly like blind, I think, to a lot of things. Highlight to that or silver lining, I, because of those experiences, can really relate to where some people are.
Absolutely. I also was thinking about like you got introductions to things throughout this, didn't you? Like what was it in California that a girl did?
Yeah,
or
human design. There had
yeah,
been like little tidbits along the
little
way that was like,
breadcrumbs.
hey, like
There's more.
there's more. Like there's more. Yeah.
I mean, if you
I
could
just
reflect
like,
back, because I was just reflecting on mine
mhm,
too, is like it's been kind of a gradual awakening,
yeah.
to more, to a realm and a deeper knowing about things, of understanding that we know more than we have given ourselves credit for.
Mhm.
We've lived in the illusion. And if you think about our choice in coming down here, we chose to be veiled. And so does this represent some of the unveiling especially as we move into Aries here, because that's what we're talking about today is Neptune re-enters Aries. It will go back into Pisces. We won't fully be into Aries until 2026, but start exploring what's happening here and reviewing what's been going on for the last few years, like what's been going on the last decade.
Some bullshit.
Right. And working through it and getting out of like I feel like my escapisms and my addictions and my patterns of behavior became very clear in the last decade. And sure, we can attribute that to also just a maturation process and responsibilities and stuff. But I mean, if we look at it from this perspective, I definitely have been uh, I needed to grow up to be able to see what I came here to do, and I'm not that I have that figured out by any means, but I have a strong feeling inside of like what's happening and where I'm going and what I know. What I don't know actually is maybe how I should state that. There's so much more. And it feels kind of cool. And so I think the baseline of this Pisces, though, is like getting to the heart of it, getting to the heart of the matter. Neptune moving through Pisces, getting to the heart of the matter, remembering who we are and that we are deserving of love. We're deserving to live in a peaceful and harmonious life. This bliss that we feel is like unattainable is absolutely within our reach, and maybe not in the sense of how we've read it in spiritual texts or this or that, or, bliss could look like a lot of different things for different people. But I think in all of the things that have been, culminating for years now, is that we are capable of co-creating. We are divine spark, and remembering these things, and how does it feel when we break through certain boundaries or blockages between the material world and divinity? Because I think that's been a real, I know for at least the last 2 years has been the forefront for me of how can I practice practical spirituality. Also, I just realized that within this 10-year span, I also had another child that also took me to another level, where I was like living somewhere else, you guys. I was like, I don't even know. If I reflect back onto that, I'm like, she was gone. She was absent. And not like necessarily in a bad way. I wasn't like, disassociating in some of the ways that I used to. I was like living up here where I couldn't ground it down. And so that's felt really important, is like, how do I ground it down? And I think this is like some of the parts of like, as we move into this Aries of like, really after now that we've been recognized where we've been blinded, where we've been veiled with illusions and caught up in addictions and patterns, okay, so we saw that. So now what do we do? Action points. How do we take that? How do we take what we've learned from that and take some of those lessons and those connections that we feel and this understanding of the heart? How do we move forward? How do we take actions? How do we start to treat people? How do we embody compassion and unconditional love, which I don't know that any of us quite yet understand unconditional love, but I think that we have a much better understanding than we did 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that it's like, this is a recalibration, where we get to like recalibrate the head and the heart and get that back communicating, because I know for me, sometimes I get too much in my head or I get too much in my heart. And sometimes like that's the biggest challenge is like, okay, how do I get those two communicating together? Right. I think you see that in body talk also of like, even in like the three brains, right? And I think that thinking about how we could start to implement this in our day-to-day lives. And I think that, there's also something deeper here. I'm just like starting to learn about the some of these different constellations and stars and how they play into what's happening also, but learning about Pegasus and Astrea, the goddess, of like how these two things play in. So it's said that we're in this age of Pegasus, actually. And Pegasus is known in mythology as being the son of Neptune and Medusa. And so if you could think about those two, I don't know enough about some of those things to just break down in storytelling for you. I have an idea about some of those things. Medusa was very angry, right? I feel like heartbroken.
Yeah.
Jackie, I feel like maybe this is your cue.
Yeah. She's the head of the snakes, right? And looking at her turns you to stone, which, when you think of like hardening, like the lack of love and or empathy. Yeah.
Yeah, or
Would be
even just being like excluded, unloved, those feelings,
which
right?
she
Yeah.
is. And then Neptune,
Nice.
god of the sea. Yeah. I think
Yeah, well, and we're talking kind of about Neptune, the planet too, like, but ruler of the sea,
yeah.
the depths of the understanding of, I would say, the emotional realms of love, of divinity, but also I feel like very powerful. If you think about a tsunami, um, or any kind of storm on the sea or the destruction that water can do is, very powerful.
I was just thinking of like it eats ships. It eats islands,
Yeah,
but also simultaneously can give life. Where
absolutely.
fire is a little bit more fire seems a little more scary. That's what I was gonna say, but
I don't know. I think of like burned alive or drowning. I don't
it's a
know.
little more peaceful to be
Drown, I
to
guess.
drown.
I
Not
guess so.
to be a little dark here. But
Don't mind us.
Pegasus is the winged horse.
Yep.
And it's not really a Greek mythology, but horses, kind of like dogs, are the how I view the closest connection to God. In that, like,
I love that.
that love that is just unconditional. Um, how many times do we see these stories about saving horses and saving um, dogs, and they come back with just obscene amounts of love where we don't
And
even,
gratitude, yeah.
yeah, have we can't even grasp that. But those are my
Well,
thoughts on that.
and to talk about just a horse too, electric magnetic frequency horse is like, I don't remember exactly, don't quote me, like 10 times bigger than a human's. That's why horse therapy can be so powerful for people, is that as soon as you step into their field, they can change yours, you know. These are things that we talk about in structured water, or that we're electromagnetic beings, right? Like doing those subtle shifts can shift big time things. Okay. So, but Pegasus, the age of Pegasus, it is representing freedom, creative inspiration, and virtue, um, ambition and enthusiasm, And here, this and the Astrea are all going to be sitting at 0 degrees of Aries, you know, and that feels like Neptune also having this creative energy, and in this connection with different realms of the creator, the source of what it is, and the freedom feels really powerful to me. This all happening through Aquarian season also, um, you know, all matching up during Aquarian season, is like this liberation, like how are we going to start setting the foundations for creative pursuits that match the language of the heart.
I just got really excited. It's like fire and water spinning up.
Yeah, I think with this, it's encouraging us to tap into our spiritual gifts. There's also going to be a rise of a little bit of fear of like what to do with that. I think if you just started really kind of experiencing these kind of shifts in what is been described as awakening. There could be a lot of fear in some of this freedom and some of this liberation and some of these breakthroughs, and to be reminded that you are fully supported. Um, there are so many unique individuals offering different modalities, different services, and they find what resonates with you.
Yeah.
Find what you feel attracted to. Find who you really feel kind of connected in with. I encourage you to make contact, try to start having conversations with people that are feeling the same way as well. Another interesting note on Pegasus is that we might have some interesting weather patterns here. Um, so as we rise into some of these things, I feel like we might be a little distracted in what's going on with the weather. I don't know where you are, but we've had some crazy storms here, and temperatures and different things going on, which is not necessarily unusual here at this time of the year, but um, comparably to the last few years seems different. The last point I wanted to talk about was Astrea, the goddess of justice and innocent. She's known as the cosmic muse and also kind of a bearer of light. Um, she left because there was such she was so hurt and discouraged with how Earth and the people of Earth were acting and interacting with each other, that the love was lost. And that she is, what is it? That she will return uh, in the golden age. You know, she will be the bringer of the golden age, which if you follow anyone like Diane Cooper or anything, you've heard of this golden age that is projected in 2035 or 36 or something like that. So that I just think it's interesting that she's here, you know. She embodies both the feeling of Virgo and Libra, like Virgo kind of in the sense of the virgin, this virgin, holy light energy, and Libra really wanting to find the balance, wanting there to be peace and harmony, you know, and we think about this utopia that we all could create. And she's bringing in this energy. And so I think that with all of those things happening, just just for me feels inspiring. Like there's like an opening. It almost feels like this portal way of energy that's opening up that will be available. So maybe just paying attention that January 26th of like how you're feeling, what kind of breakthroughs that you have, what kind of aha moments that you have, and tuning into your own light and your own heart and like what it is that you want to see in the world. How do you want your life to be? And how would you want your neighbor's life to be? How would you want your best friend's life to be? How do you want your parents' life to be? You know, like how do you want your children's life to be? You know, like however you want to take that view and perspective, and how would you like to see, and how can you use that energy that day to help recalibrate the head and the heart? I don't think there's any, I think there's like another funny thing that we just went through this Aries Libra access on the nodes here, and really Aries being in the North Node of really having to learn about Aries before all of these things. Like we've got quite a few. Saturn will also be going into Aries on February 20th. We'll also be at that 0 degree, you know, and how funny the lessons and creating structures. How do we create and break through the limitations to build the things and move forward to the things that feel heart-centered? I just, you know, moving out of Pisces, that's where our nodes are now. Like we're like, it's like we're getting the lessons that we need to then be able to shift into the next thing. You know, here Neptune's been in Pisces all these years. We've had this understanding. So now with the nodes being in there, how do we embody that as a collective? Aries, where we're coming from, we've got planets now moving into that. How have we learned to tune into our sovereignty? How have we learned to put our foot down and create boundaries about things that are important to us, or passions, or, even like, how do we light our own fire of inspirations? What lights us up, and how do we pursue it? How do we go after it? How do we keep that fire going? And how do we actually bring it in and use it? Like, use these bodies to inspire and create, and all of these things. So we've just learned all this. We've learned also to let go and to not people please, not be the martyr, not, and so here we shift into this, and we're learning how to balance this Aries Pisces, like this so-called ending and beginning. I think some in some practices of astrology, people would, not agree with that, but these endings and beginnings, and what does that look like? And how does that feel? How does it feel? Like, think I've mentioned before that I feel like I've really grieved a lot of who I was, and even grieved maybe who I'm becoming, you know. It feels kind of scary because I don't know, nobody's done these things. Everybody's kind of stepping out in new ways and different ways of expressions. And I think it's interesting that all of these things, like Aries and Pisces and Neptune and Saturn, and all of these things are kind of playing together in new openings and new ways to explore, and new perceptions of who and how we can be, and what the world can look like, and how we can take action doing it. Not to mention the new cycle in Mars, Cancer with water, of like Mars, again, the rulership thing, Aries, of how do we take a more heart-centered approach to what we go after? How do we take a more heart-centered way of like pursuing our passions? I still feel like I'm connecting those dots and feeling into that. It will be really interesting to actually go through it and feel. But here's a date. Here's a date for you to maybe feel. Would love to know how you were feeling about it, or if you have placements that are going over the 0 degrees Aries. That'd be really cool. I would love to know, maybe what the focal point is for you. I don't personally have anything really in Aries. I mean, I guess that's kind of a fib, but I don't have any big planets there. I have some asteroids and some different things there. I just feel like something's opening up, and it's time to start shining your light. Start to It's like time to start shining your individual light, like what what your heart knows. What does your heart know? I want to know.
Ashley wants to know heart feelings.
Oh, I love it. I do. I can't even deny it. Uh, I really would. All jokes aside, uh, whether that's like a personal email that you send, you can reach us through Hallison, our email. Whether you want to book a reading, any of those things. I'm not trying to sell myself either. I just genuinely love learning these things, and understanding how other people feel these things, or see them, or experience them. I just think is absolutely fascinating. Um, Jackie, do you have anything to add in the sense of like where you think that you're going with all of that information that I just said?
I'm excited to have some fire
Yes.
because
I think a lot of people are.
I just
Should
need
be.
a little. It's not that I don't have any, but I have very little.
Yeah.
And so when there's a little extra up there, I appreciate it because it helps this water that I am
Yeah.
have a little more.
Yeah.
So
Thanks so much for tuning in. If you have anything to share or want to pipe in, or if you have any information on Pegasus or Astrea or Neptune, if you have
please share.
anything to say, I'd love to hear it. But until next time, like, share, subscribe, all the things. Now we have a black heart. Welcome to the black heart.